I read 16 books in the month of October, which I feel like is a record high for me, so I feel like I deserve a reward. Where's my trophy? Where's my cake? Where's my celebration? Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you my October wrap-up. I'm bringing back reading wrap-ups to the channel, baby. Like I said, I read 16 books in the month of October, some middle grade, a memoir, a dark academia, a graphic novel, and a manga. Lots of things to talk about today. Without further ado, let's get started. The first book I read this month was The Sisters Grimm, the Fairy Tale Detectives. This is book 1 in a 7-book series? 9-book series? 7 books. 9? 7. Where's my phone? Let's Google. There are 9 books in the Sisters Grimm series. I should have known that because I literally bought all of the books before I even read this book. Good thing I enjoyed this book. In the Sisters Grimm, we are following 2 sisters, the Sisters Grimm. Obviously, they are in fact related to the Brothers Grimm, like they're distant relatives. And in this book, their parents have disappeared and they are in and out of all these different foster homes. They are being treated horribly. And then one day, their grandmother, who they didn't know even existed, shows up and takes them in. When they get to her home, they realize that there is something just completely off about the city that she lives in, and they are right to feel that way because they find out that she lives amongst these characters that can be found in the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. When I posted about the fact that I was reading this on my Instagram and on Goodreads, so many of you came through and were like, this series is my childhood. And apparently this series is like very popular. I don't know how I've never heard of it before. I only first heard about it when I stumbled across these books at Half Price Books, and I was just like instantly intrigued by these covers. They just have this very classic fairy tale illustration vibe on the covers, and I like instantly fell in love. I had to have them. And like I said, I ended up picking up the full series without having read the first book, but I read the first book and I freaking loved it. Is it perfect? Absolutely not, but it is such a fun, rich adventure. It's very reminiscent of a series of unfortunate events and the Spiderwick Chronicles, specifically at the beginning, just in how like the kids are so mistreated when it comes to like their foster care. Like they are jumping around to all these different families in foster care and they're just being so mistreated, so neglected, and then their grandmother comes into the picture, and that's when this like Spiderwick feeling comes into the picture because her house is so reminiscent of the house in the Spiderwick Chronicles, and I was just obsessed. It definitely finds its own path though. I don't want to say that it's like exact copies of those books because it does go down its own lane, and I love the lane that it goes down. There are so many familiar characters that pop up throughout this series, and this series actually inspired me to pick up my own copy of the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. So at some point I will be reading this because this just made me realize that like I don't know much of the originals, and I want to know the originals. I want to know the OG. I want to know what inspired this. So I'm super excited to get to this at some point, though it is a hefty book, so we will see when I get around to tackling it. Again, it's not a perfect book by any means, but I was just so enchanted by it. Something that I really appreciated about it is that the journey that the girls go through in this book, they have like this really big obstacle that is occurring with their grandmother and their grandmother getting taken away from them. And the obstacle is not one that is easy to fix. They are challenged time and time again. They make wrong choices. They didn't make all the right choices. There's lots of messiness involved. And I just so appreciate that because I feel like I've read quite a few books in the past few years where like there's just no obstacles. Like the characters just figure out the perfect path right out the bat. And I just hate that. Like I need more of a challenge. I need more of a realistic journey where the characters make wrong decisions and they have to face obstacles and they have to face more challenges before they are able to get to the gold at the end of the rainbow. I definitely want to commit to the series, but it's never a good thing when there's a but involved. But I do think that I want to read the Brothers Grimm fairy tales before I carry on with the series, just so that I can like understand more of the references that are involved in this and just have more context for different characters that pop up throughout this series. This just feels like such a big undertaking and I'm a bit intimidated by it, so we will see how this goes. Let me know down below in the comments if you guys have read the Sisters Grimm series, which book in the series is your favorite, who's your favorite character. Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. I ended up giving the Sisters Grimm a 3 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read Such Small Hands. In this book, we follow Marina, whose parents have passed away in a car crash, and she ends up in an all-girls orphanage. During the day, she is treated horribly, but at night, she takes charge of this game that all the girls are obsessed with, and that is playing dolls. Not with like actual dolls, but each night one of the girls becomes a doll that all the other girls can control. When our main character Marina puts up a fight to be a doll one of the nights instead of taking charge, things take a very dark turn. Very dark. No light, light bulbs off, candle blown out, Dark. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I didn't really know what to expect going into it, but it delivered on the creepiness front. It has this sort of confusing writing style, specifically when it like focuses in on Marina's character, and I feel like it not only lends itself to the eeriness that this book delivers, but it also matches what our main character Marina is going through. Like, she's obviously just been through a very traumatic event, and I feel like it just does a fantastic job of kind of capturing what that traumatic feeling is like and how it's kind of warping the way she interacts with the world, and I loved it. I loved the writing style. Now, this book does fall into a predictable place. Like, the second that they start playing dolls at night, I was like, okay, I know where this is going. Like, I have a feeling where this is going to go. I didn't know who was going to be involved in the actual big reveal, but I knew what was going to happen. But just because it's predictable, that doesn't take away from the impact that comes flooding in with those big reveals. The biggest punch that I felt is when I got to the afterword and began reading it and found out that this story is based off an actual event that occurred at an orphanage, and I am still like coming down from that punch. Like, that is what made this even more impactful, is realizing that it's based off an actual thing that happened. Like, consider me shocked. I was shocked. I ended up giving Such Small Hands a 4 out of 5 stars. It's a fantastic short story and I highly recommend it. Next, I read the first 5 books in the Magic Treehouse series. We've got Book 1, Dinosaurs Before Dark, Book 2, The Night at Dawn, Book 3, Mummies in the Morning, Book 4, Pirates Past Noon, and Book 5, Night of the Ninjas. This series follows Jack and Annie, who ended up stumbling across a magic treehouse in the woods. In this treehouse, there are tons of books that explores different places and different times in history, and through the treehouse and through the books, the kids are able to go back to these different places and learn more about the location, learn more about the history of those places, and also tackle different challenges. These have honestly been so much fun. Now, I am working on a really big video involving the Magic Treehouse series, which you will probably not see until like January, maybe February of next year. It just depends on how long it takes me. I'm not making any promises though. It could be like even later, but I am super excited about this video. It's like one of my passion projects currently, and these books have just been such a blast from the past. I didn't know how I would feel about these books as an adult, but they've been landing even better as an adult. Reading them is bringing me back to that feeling of reading as a kid and that excitement I had while I read, and that feeling is one that I don't feel as often reading as an adult, which makes me so sad. Like, it's a very rare occurrence where I feel like intense amounts of excitement, and like I feel that while reading these books. Outside of that though, I feel like I've learned so much about storytelling with these books. The amount of things that the author is able to cover in such a short amount of time has been fascinating to me. Mind you, these are easy as easy gets when it comes to reading. Like, they are not a chore at all. They're super fun, super short, super quick, but they've been feeding my hunger for nostalgia, and I've been quite literally having the time of my life reading these books. I gave 5 stars to Dinosaurs Before Dark, 3 stars to The Night at Dawn, 5 stars to Mummies in the Morning, 4 stars to Pirates Past Noon, and 5 stars to The Night of Ninjas. The next 5 books are from the reading vlog that I did where I read your scary childhood books. Link to that video down below in the description. First up, we got ZOMBIEKINS, a book about a zombified plushie that terrorizes a school and commits plushie murder. This was an all-around wild ride with quirky illustrations, but ultimately falls flat with the execution of the ending. The conflict being easily fixable was not it. Give me more of a challenge and you would have slayed. 2 stars. Next, I read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I am so sad that I missed out on this one as a child, but this book is filled to the brim in scary stories. The title is what it is. I feel like if you read these stories as a kid, you probably had a hard time sleeping as a kid because some of these illustrations matched with the stories are outright terrifying. Like, that combo would have had me having insane nightmares. I would have been sleeping with one eye open at all times. That being said, I highly recommend it. 4 stars. Next, I read BUNNICULA, and I feel like the best way that I can describe this book is what would happen if your cat and dog took on a mystery involving your bunny, and if your bunny is in fact a vampire. Ridiculousness. Nothing but ridiculousness. Honestly, this ended up being a really comedic story about a cat and a dog trying to figure out if a bunny was a vampire or not. Like, it's literally about them trying to protect their owners from what they believe to be this like very vicious vampire bunny. Super cute and super fun. 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read read Down a Dark Hall, the story of mysterious happenings at an all-girls boarding school. This one had an excellent concept that was executed very well. The ending was a little on the rush side, but overall it's a creepy and unsettling story. But not too creepy and not too unsettling. I feel like if you're somebody that like wants to get into horror, but like has a hard time with like how intense it can be, this one is not that intense and not that terrifying. And it's good for people that like want to get into horror, but just like have a hard time with how intense it can be. 4 stars for this one. Next I read Deep and Dark and Dangerous, a story about finding closure for a ghost and about finding closure for these 2 sisters that had a major traumatic event happen to them as kids. This was a solid, eerie ghost story that didn't necessarily bring on the frights, but I enjoyed the journey of finding closure for all these characters involved in this traumatic event that happened. 3 stars. Next, I read The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. This is Britney Spears' memoir. I've been so looking forward to reading this one, and it did not disappoint. It talks about her life growing up, her life in the industry, and all the hardships that she's had to face, and just overall, one, her mistreatment as an artist, but also her mistreatment as a human. Like, I feel like people just lost sight of her humanity. Like, they just saw her as this like shiny star, and they took advantage of that. And honestly, her recounting everything that's happened to her was infuriating. Oh my god, I'm not even to like the review part. Let's talk about my thoughts now. This is one of those books where like I just genuinely cannot give it a rating. Like, it feels bad giving a rating to somebody's life story. Like, I just feel unsettled by that, so I'm not gonna do that. What I will say is that I appreciated how open and honest it felt. Obviously, I know that this book was ghostwritten, that somebody helped Britney tell her story, and I don't see a problem with that with this situation, but I really felt like it was very well written. There were times when I felt like Britney might have been like holding back, but it's also one of those situations where it's like, this is her story. This is her chance to tell her story. She has a right to share what she wants to share and what she doesn't want to share. There was a part of me that wondered if she wasn't able to like share certain things because of like legal issues that could have come into play. But overall, I love this memoir. I loved hearing more of Britney's story, even though it's like hard to read at times and devastating. I do hope that Britney is able to find healing and find peace, because it's what she deserves. Like, my god, let the girl live her life. Next up, I read If We Were Villains. This story follows our main character Oliver, who is rehashing a murder that took place at his school that he ended up doing time for. We delve into the past of 7 students who are attending this school, who are all actors and who are studying Shakespeare, and the roles that they all play in the story reflect the roles that they play on stage. I can't even begin to explain how much I loved this book. Now, I must say, it does have a focus on Shakespeare. Like, there's a lot of Shakespeare threaded throughout this book, and I'm not gonna sit here and be like, I understood all the Shakespeare stuff that was threaded throughout this book. Like, no, I can't sit here and confidently say that I understood a lot of it, but I could at least gather the fact that like the Shakespeare bits that were threaded throughout the book reflected the things going down with each of the characters, and I just thought that that was like genius. I feel like it's one of those books where it is very focused on the characters. Like, if you don't love the characters, I'm not sure that you're gonna vibe that well with the book. Like, there is a plot present, but I also just felt like it was kind of there, and it's mostly like build up to like the big reveals. But because I grew such strong emotions surrounding the characters, I didn't care. They could have sat in front of a wall and talked to the wall the whole book, and I would have been entertained. I just loved the sort of bond that the characters created with each other, this kind of family unit that they created, their passion for being on the stage and performing, how deeply they sunk into the characters that they were portraying. I loved it. I loved seeing their passion so much. That was like one of my favorite parts of it. The mystery, the reveals. Oh, the reveals. I was gutted. I'm still unwell. This is one of those books where it's kind of like a bit of an open-ended, up to the reader to decide what happens. And like, for this situation, I really didn't love that, because like, I wanted to know a certain thing. I wanted to know a certain aspect of this book. I wanted closure on one specific thing, and I'm still unwell. Like, I literally finished this yesterday, and I'm still not okay. I am still recovering from If We Were Villains, and I will need a moment to breathe. Next, I read Through the Woods. This is one of my all-time favorite graphic novels. It's filled with 5 grim stories that may or may not keep you up at night. Reader beware. This was just as mystifying the second time reading it as it was the first time reading it. I just feel like Emily Carroll is a genius. I just recently picked up one of her other graphic novels, and I am so excited to get into that one and devour it. These stories will terrify you, and they will wrap themselves around you and leave a mark on you. A mark that will just like make you think about these stories and just how well done they are. It's a banger. 5 stars. And finally, I read The Haunted Bookstore. This is the manga adaptation of the light novels of the same name. It follows Kaori, though there are a plethora of characters, let me just say. And she lives in a bookstore that borders the line of the real world and the spirit realm. We follow her journey in working with the spirits in the spirit realm, but one day an exorcist shows up and begins to kind of stir up her life a bit. There is so much that goes on in this manga, and it just was a little bit on the messy side of things. It feels like there is kind of an overarching story, specifically following the exorcist that comes into the picture, but it also felt like there wasn't much developing with like that overarching story, and instead we just like had a bunch of random stories within this world. Mind you, a bunch of stories that did not feel like they connected in a linear way, and that's just like what made it feel like so messy and all over the place, and honestly just a bit confusing at times. Like I think I just went into it expecting it to have kind of more of an overarching story, more of a linear story, but that's not what I got. And I don't know if the series kind of evolves into that place. I don't know if the light novels that this is based off of has much more of a steady connecting stepping blocks style of format. If any of you guys have read the light novels, let me know, because I need to know, because I'm curious. Like I definitely want to give this another shot. Like I want to read volume 2 and see if it gets better, but like if it does not get better, this is going to be knocked into DNFville. Even though like I was interested in the world and I think it is like a fascinating concept, I just don't know that it was executed that well. And I'm going to be completely honest, there were short stories in the back of the book and I skipped them because I started to get into them and I was like, this is adding nothing to the story. Like, okay, give us nothing. I got like 4 pages into one of the short stories and I was just like, I cannot do this. I'm not going to do this. I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars, though now that I've like talked it through, I'm like, should I lower it to a 2-star rating? I don't know. I'm conflicted. It was fun. It was just messy fun. That is it for my October reading wrap up. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I'm not even gonna lie. I really enjoyed it. Part of the reason why I stopped doing wrap ups is because I was like, I don't want to be like all the other booktubers, but like, I'm a booktuber. I want to be like all the other booktubers. So we are welcoming wrap ups back onto the channel and I'm super excited about it. Let me know down below in the comments how many books that you read in the month of October. Don't feel ashamed if you didn't read that many books in the month of October. Reading is not a competition. Reading is all about having fun and reading whatever you want to read, however much you want to read. Just let me know how many books you read in the month of October. Let me know if you read any books that you love and you want to rave about. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in today's video and what you thought of them. I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye. Oh!